When I first started questioning that something might be going on with me, I was in the middle of menopause. But you have to go one whole year without having any signs of blood. Well, I didn't pay attention. Those things, for those reasons, I started looking. So I was tired of, I felt like I had a cycle every day. Like, or okay, no spotting. No, nothing for 2 days, and then for a week, and then nothing for 2 or 3 days, and then for 3 weeks. And that's what drove me to find out what was going on with my body. I'm Margie Wilson. I live in Seattle, Washington. I am single. I have 5 grandchildren, and I'm also a fitness instructor. So I teach classes when I can. And I'm also the program director of ECANA, Endometrial Cancer Action Network for African Americans. When I first started questioning that something might be going on with me, I was in the middle of menopause. And for those of you that aren't there yet or haven't done it before, uh, haven't arrived, or you're a man, so all these things happen to your body, and it always, if you Google it, the symptoms will be under menopause. So I did that for I don't even know how many years I did it, which is one thing that I speak to very directly right now. When you're going through menopause and you have all these different symptoms in your body, the hot flashes, the mood swings, the different things with our physical bodies are taking place, that you go one full year without having any cycle. So during menopause, you could have a cycle for 2 months and then don't have one for three. And then you can have one for 4 months and then don't have it. So that was happening as well. But you have to go one whole year without having any signs of blood. Well, I didn't pay attention. So today I can't tell you if I ever went a whole year without seeing any blood. However, when the blood got heavier, the spotting and the bleeding was heavier, that's when I mentioned it to my doctor. And we went, had ultrasound, got a biopsy, all of this within, I would say, maybe a 6 or 8 month period. And I'm still, I didn't experience a lot of pain, which for me, well, maybe for most people too, it makes you move quicker. But when you're just thinking, oh my gosh, I'm still bleeding, when is this going to stop? I didn't do anything about it. And I didn't even think anything of it because I just thought it was menopause, part of menopause. So those things, for those reasons, I started looking. So I was tired of, I felt like I had a cycle every day. Like, okay, no spotting. No, nothing for 2 days, and then for a week, and then nothing for 2 or 3 days, and then for 3 weeks. And that's what drove me to find out what was going on with my body. I had seen my OBGYN, and she was like, she took a biopsy in the office, which is, I would never, my thought is that I hope that procedure is better today than it was 7 years ago, because she's like, oh, it's not going to hurt. It'll be fine. I just need to go up here with the scissors and pull out a piece so I can send it to the lab, because I feel like there's something going on in here. And she sent me home with antibiotics. She goes, some kind of infection or something is going on in here, but I'm not sure. That was the worst thing. I say maybe it lasted 10 minutes. And I was like, I finally said to her, wait, I parked a ways away. Am I going to be able to walk to my car when you're done? Because she was just, had some kind of tweezers and was just digging up into, my vaginal air, trying to pull something out. And it was so painful. But she kept saying, okay, I'm just about done. I'm just about done. And I was like, what was that? And me, I'm not very medical wise. I don't know a lot of medical terminology, but I left there thinking, and then there wasn't any pain after, but just the whole process was horrible. And then when I went and saw my, to get the ultrasound tech said, it looks a little, a little thick, like your lining of the uterus is thick. And yeah, we probably need to check that out. Let's I'm just gonna set you up right now for an appointment with a OBGYN oncologist too. And then you make sure you bring somebody with you to that appointment. And then when I got home, I just casually said to my daughter, um, next week I'm going to see a OBGYN oncologist um, for an appointment because they sent all my stuff there. And my daughter like just drops what she's doing and she stares at me and I'm like, what? And she said, they're sending you to an oncologist? I think that's what she said, OBGYN oncologist. She goes, well, Mom, they think you have cancer. And I said, well, how do you know that? She goes, because you're going to see an oncologist. That's my level of knowledge. I just was always a healthy person, never broken a bone, delivered both my kids vaginally. I didn't have any, I've just never been, I had never been under before I had surgery. I had never been under where they knock you completely out and do something like that. So that was my biggest fear. Am I going to wake up? But that's when I found out, oh my gosh, okay. And so, and she goes, well, who's going with you? And I said, oh, my friend, Holly's going to come with me. And she said, okay, well, make sure you take good notes and find out what's going on. And that was my first journey and my introduction to, you might have cancer. Mind you, in my mind, even after hearing that, it was like, I ain't got no cancer. I'm just like, calm down, people, calm down. Okay, when I went to see the OBGYN, so oncologist, and so he'd seen my ultrasound, and I'm thinking too that he probably had the results from the biopsy that she took, that the OBGYN doctor took. And he said, well, and this doctor was, and no joke, this doctor was fast talking, no bedside manners at all. It was so bad. But I'm still deer in headlights. Like I'm sitting here talking to someone that you're going to try to tell me something's wrong with me. So while I was in his office for 15 minutes, he threw out words like, you might have cancer, you might not have cancer. You might have a carcinoma, or you might not have one. Or, well, you're 58. You don't really need all those parts. We'll just take everything out. We'll just have a complete history. If we see it, this is how he was talking. If we see any signs of cancer in there, and we might or we might not, then we're just taking everything out. You're 58. You don't really need it in the first place. And then my friend who was with me was like, literally, she was like, excuse me, can you slow down? Can you tell her what that means? She doesn't know what you're talking about. And he just kept, and I was on the table. He checked me, everything in 15 minutes. And then I was over in the other room making an appointment for a surgery in 15 minutes. So the day I met him, and he's like, we'll know for sure after surgery, but I think it might be, but it might not be. And that's the part that I thought was weird. That he was like, it might be, it might not be. And then naming off different kinds of cancers that it could or could not be, and did my girlfriend was just totally put off by him saying, she needs her female organs. What do you mean you don't need them anymore? She was like, but I was just still like, are you kidding me? And then even as we're making the appointment, she's like, you can cancel this if you need to. It's let's get some more opinions and all this. And so after that, I was just in shock and I couldn't believe that it all happened so like it did so quickly. And I was numb for about 2 months. So all of this is like a blur. I'm in the room and, my daughters, and because I have my youngest daughter lives in Chicago. So right then she's, plugging in too. And they're like, okay, let's get the email strings going. Let's find out what we need for care. And then my friends too. And I'm just like, then I realized, oh, everybody's talking about me. Well, they're talking about me. This is me that's going through this. That was probably when I look back, was probably one of the most odd things is that in that moment, I really couldn't see myself in that moment. Stage 1B and grade 3. So I was told at this time that, the grade 3 is that all the cancer stayed inside the uterine walls, but it was 80%. So 20 more percent, it would have been out. And then I did get lymph nodes checked. I don't know how many, quite a few. All the surrounding areas to make sure, CT scan, all of that within 3 weeks after my surgery. And all of that came back clear. Thank you, Jesus. I was happy about that, of course. And I healed up really well from the surgery. And I did wake up from the surgery. I didn't get a second and a third opinion until after surgery because my doctor was like, no, let's just get it done and then we'll research as we go. During the process of my surgery, it was supposed to be 2.5 hours and it was 4. When they got in, the tumor that they found was too big because they were doing it laparoscopically, and so they couldn't get it out laparoscopically. So they ended up having to cut me a little to get it out. So that extended the length of time that I was in surgery. So that there, once again, I didn't know any of this until I, came to that I had been out that long. And so when I did wake up, it was like, okay, then I started hearing, by then my daughter and some friends, those that were waiting in the hospital, were in my room. And I do remember when the doctor came in and he was saying, well, we got it all. He said, we took everything. He said, and it was like everything had just dissolved in their hands when they were taken down. It was already rotted, and everything that they took out was all. So that was good. I don't want rotten stuff in my body. So that was like a relief to hear, and that he felt like he got it all. He goes, it stayed inside the uterine wall. We feel like we got it all. We did take some um, lymph nodes and stuff that were all around to just to double check. We'll get that back from pathology in about a week, and so when I came in for my checkup, my 10-day checkup appointment, we got that good news. Everything was clear. So when I was in that appointment with him, he started he started throwing out all the stuff about chemo and radiation, and that we'd have to. What was interesting is that and I guess this is a good thing. The doctors do know where your insurance covers for surgery, where you can get chemo and radiation that your insurance covers. So that was interesting. So I ended up he referred me to the Fred Hutch here in Seattle, Washington, for radiation. So when I talked to him, which was my second opinion about all of the radiation and chemo stuff, he said, "Well, I've looked at all your stuff, and it looks like we're going to we'll probably do maybe 4, maybe 5 rounds of chemo. I mean, so it changed every time, and then maybe 4 or 5 weeks of radiation after. But he was a very complete opposite from the other doctor. Very, I was probably in his office an hour. He just was talk. I had 1 or 2 people with me taking notes too. Very calm, very, eye contact, just talking to you like you're a person instead of a number, or just get what's next, what's next. I mean, that's how I felt in the first, with my surgeon. Um, and then now my daughter who lives in Chicago, she was at the UW, at the University of Washington, working and doing research as professor. And while she was there, she met a doctor. And this doctor that she met knows the doctor who is going to be my chemo doctor. So she's um, emailing and texting me, Mom, I just talked to so and so, and she's going to hook you up with so and so, and you're going to be. They're going to call the office. Is going to call you, and you're going to go see them because she's an expert in this area, and blah blah. All of this, and I'm like, okay, sure enough, and that's how I met Dr. Kimmy Dole, who was my chemo doctor and my third opinion. So when I talked to her, that's when I got we weren't in the office. We're in a bigger room, sitting at a table. She's drawing pictures. She's asking me questions, giving me space to answer, going back to re-say what she already said, making sure I understood everything was going out, and then just say, I'm drawing you a picture right here. Draw it all out. This is this, this is this, this is the percent. If you do this many, if you do no chemo at all, here's the percentages that your cancer may or may not come back. If you do this much chemo, this is the percentage. And if you do this, and for radiation, we're not going to do pelvic radiation, we're going to do brachytherapy radiation. Explain to me what brachytherapy radiation was, why. She said, because you got to know at your stage and from looking at all your records, this is preventative. Your chemo and radiation is all preventative. We want to make sure it doesn't come back. I do use essential oils, and so immediately I went to see the oils that help with nausea and all the different, nausea is one of the major side effects that they say you have, especially if you're one of those people that like when you're riding a ride, you get dizzy or you get, and that's me. So I was like, okay, I cannot be throwing up. I just was like, I cannot be. And you know what? I didn't. I had not one bout of nausea. I did deal with the neuropathy though and the brain fog, not being able to just focus on something for long periods of time. That was like, ugh. And it kind of takes away from who you know yourself to be, because you're like, I just had that in my brain. What I think, what was I gonna say or do? That. Yeah, so the neuropathy, I soaked my feet a lot, rubbed my feet a lot, wore good shoes to make sure I had on a comfortable shoe. It's just yucky. You just hate to deal with that. And then, oh, you know what I did also? I saw a naturopath once a month, and I got acupuncture. Acupuncture helped too with the nausea. So I was grateful to have different avenues. The radiation was to start 6 to 8 weeks after surgery. That's the healing time for surgery. Complete healing time, about 8 weeks. So when I went in for my Reiki therapy, is where it's like internal radiation, where they actually take a tube and they put it right up your vagina and just blast the radiation like that. And so he gets you all made up and got up and put your legs up in the stirrup. They're getting you all ready. After the first year, like I ended my chemo in February of 2017. And then 3 months later, I saw Dr. Dole. And I saw her again 3 months later. And then I saw her again 3 months later. And then in 2018, I saw her twice a year. I went in every 6 months. Well, yeah, taking blood and doing a check. And then in 2019, I saw her once. And then I was good. Because I felt good, I was pretty okay. But yet in the back of your mind, it's always there. It's always there that if I hear from her within the next 24, 48 hours after my appointment, why? Right? So yeah, it was always kind of in the back of my mind, but not too bad. Just just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then after the first year, each year got better. Each year got better. And then coming up to the appointment, like a month or two before I knew I was going to have to see her again, just a lot of deep breathing and body checking myself, thinking to myself, well, you know the sign, you know what to look for, that kind of thing, and being aware of my own body. And the mental aspect of it, mentally, yeah, that's always there, and the work that I do with Econa too, um, that helps, and then sometimes it doesn't help, because you're just constantly reliving that hard season of your life. I wouldn't have known what a clinical trial was back then anyway. I wouldn't have known none of it. I told you I didn't know what an oncologist was. Now, 7 years later, that's my vocabulary is I've been involved in several research projects and I've learned so much about clinical trials and their importance and having the demographics right when you have a clinical trial and you're not having everybody represented in that, say so there's all the different nationalities have to be represented, otherwise you don't know, well, does it work the same way on an Hispanic woman as it does a black woman, as it does a white woman, as it does a mixed race woman, and all of that does come to play, as we found out, because endometrial cancer, black women die more from it, and that's what econ is all about, ringing that bell and getting that education out there that you need to know about this in our especially in our black women community. White women are diagnosed more often, but they're living. And the black women, when they're diagnosed, more of them die, and that was the foundation and the cry of Econo when we first started. And now, that's one of our main pillars is education and support, not being by yourself. My main message after this journey is, if you're a woman and you start going through menopause and your cycle starts going crazy, document it so that you can go back and say, the last time I had a cycle was 15 months ago. Go directly to the doctor. That's not normal. If it's more than 12 months that you have not had a cycle, then you have a cycle or you see a dot of blood, go see your doctor. That is probably the strongest message from my particular journey that I speak out loudly about, because I didn't know to do that. I didn't keep a journal. I didn't pay attention. I figured it's menopause. When it's done. No worries, and to find a doctor that you like. Find a doctor that's going to listen to you, not dismiss you, not say you're okay, not say you're strong, you don't need anything. No, none of that's okay. To a doctor to assume what you're feeling and what you're going through. He's not allowed to do that. She's not allowed to do that. They are not allowed to do that. They're allowed to listen to you and realize that you are the most important person in the room as the patient. I want to be treated like this is the first time you saw it. So I always say that, just don't let a doctor dismiss you, or don't let a doctor tell you that what you're experiencing is all in your head. And if they don't have an answer, go find one who does. And if you're talking in a doctor situation where you don't respect the doctor at all, then leave. Go find one that you can. That is so important, because we don't want to be like the person that say, oh, but they weren't right, or they were. But it's you that you're talking about. It's your health, and you have to be able to communicate in a way that's clear, and you have to be communicate in a way where you're being heard, that you feel like you're being heard.